Okay guys, we are back today with our second edition of the Red Orchestra 2 SDK basic tutorial. We'll cover a little bit more in-depth things than we did the other day. If you remembered the first edition, we just kind of went through setting up the level, just getting to a point where we could spawn in. Today we're going to start off with a couple other things real quick. As you can see, we don't have anything in the background of this map. It's just the terrain. So just to kind of give it a little bit better, more of a better environment look, we're going to throw down a sky mesh. So I'll show you real quick how we'll do that. As usual, we're going to search over here in the content browser, and I'll just tap in sky. I've got my results limited to static meshes because that's what we're going to use to start out. I'm just going to use this GE sky. You can use any of the sky boxes you want, and we can change the material on them later if we want to be sunny, cloudy, or whatever. Later on we'll even talk about importing and creating your own skies. So I'm going to not drag and drop it as we covered in the first lesson. I'm going to just throw it down anywhere. It's going to be way too small for the map. As you can see, if you hover over a static mesh in the content browser, you can see there the bounds, tells you the size it is. So it's 600 UUs, which off the top of my head something like 12 meters wide. So it's not very big, but they scale very well. So what I'm going to do is something I skipped last time. To switch between the widgets, you press spacebar. So I'm going to switch to the scaling widget. I've got my universal scaling option set. If I wanted to just stretch it one direction only, I would check the other box. But I'm going to leave it here for now in the universal. So no matter which one of these axes I pull on, it's going to universally scale anything up. So I'm just going to blow it up real quick here. As you can see, let's see. Sometimes it does show up in this overhead view. Sometimes it does not. As you can see, I made it a little bit too big. There it is. A little trick I've noticed, if I start scaling it down and adjusting it in the overhead view, it disappears. I don't know why that happens, but to avoid that, I usually just scale the sky mesh in the 3D view. That way I can see the overhead. This gray box is my terrain. So usually I'll make the sky box a little bit bigger than the terrain. Have it kind of stick over the edge a little bit, and then the final step I'll do is actually usually I try to get it somewhere in the middle. The final step I'll do is just pull it down a hair so I don't see any black, so it just looks like the horizon ends. Now normally we'll have other things in the background so it doesn't just fall off the end of the earth right there, but this is a good start. It kind of gives us a real world feel to the map. A couple considerations for skyboxes: you don't want them casting shadows at all. It'll really screw with the lighting on the map. So we'll bring up the properties for the sky mesh either by double clicking it or selecting it and hitting F4. I'm just going to type in shadow in the search bar up here, and I can just disable shadows right here. Cast shadow, and we'll click right here to disable shadows. That's one consideration. That way we don't want dark spots all over the map and light blocked by the skybox. One other quick little trick you can do: disable collision on the skybox. We don't need anything to collide with it, and it kind of saves a little overhead room on the performance of the map if we disable collision. So we're just going to go to collision in the properties and no collision. So that's done. We'll leave that alone. Now if we were to go back into the preview, we're not going to see anything different yet because we haven't rebuilt light. So we're in lit mode, but we have to rebuild light, and then at that point you'll see the sun will actually look like it's coming from that sun in the skybox. Once we rebuild light, you'll be able to see that. The next thing we're going to cover are the objectives. Now that we've got somewhat of a real world feel to the map, we're going to throw down a quick objective just to see how that works and how that ties into Kismet. So what we're going to do to throw down an objective, it's in our actor classes. We are going to find it under navigation point. RO objective. We're making an RO map. If you were making one of the other game types, you could use theirs. RO objective, I'm just going to put it somewhere halfway between my two spawns here. And I'm going to right click, add the objective here. Two things you need for objectives to work. You need the objective itself. I'm going to drag it just a hair above ground, and I'm going to hit end to have it snap down. Like the other icons, you can increase the size of this. It won't change anything other than the icon size. So if I wanted to increase the size of it, I would blow up the scale. Maybe I want it a little bit bigger so I can see it easily from a distance. So there is the objective. In the objective is where you would set the name of the objective, you know, bridge or gully or whatever you wanted to call it. We would type it in here. Why don't we just type it in objective? That's real original, but we'll do it like that. The A, B's, and C's and things like that that you see when you're attacking and defending are generated from the indexes. So this one's already 0, so this is going to be A. You'll notice if you get a bunch of objectives and some of them share a number, things aren't going to work out right for you, and that's usually one of the first things you're going to want to look at is the index number. So we've got that set. We can also put which team owns it. For this map, it's neutral. So some of the maps you play, Fallen Fighters is one that comes to mind. I think Barashka has some neutral objectives maybe. It would just start out unowned, and you'd rush to it and try to capture it. You'd set the minimum time for the capture. Some of these you can compare to some of the vanilla maps you're used to, just to see. Very few are this short, 15 seconds, but some are. And some of this other stuff we can get into, priorities and stuff, a little bit down the road, but we're just trying to get the basic objective set up. The second thing we need to add is a RO placeable volume, which is the bounds of the objective. So that's the objective itself. When you're playing in the game, this is where it'll tell you to run to. This is where the letter will appear on the overhead map. But if we want to set up, we want the objective bounds. So what we're going to do is grab our brush builder again. And if you remember, it's hard to grab it when the terrain's showing. So I'm just going to hide the terrain by pressing T. And then I'm going to grab it and put the terrain back. And if you recall, this one's kind of evenly above and below ground, which is just a good habit to get into. You never want to try to completely put it above or below ground. It does you no good, up or down. So we have it set up. This is a little small, so what I'm going to do is get my geometry tool. Now, a couple other things I'll mention real quick that I didn't go over, and I probably won't because they're not unique to Red Orchestra 2's SDK. They're more of Unreal development kit tools, and that is the when you're using the builder brush in general, and when you're making BSP shapes, which are like, you can create shapes, buildings, rooms. There's a ton of tutorials online already on how to do that. If you just search, BSP tutorial, UDK, whatnot, you can learn how to do all that, create windows, doors. It's kind of an old-fashioned approach, but it's still useful. And a lot of buildings can be made with BSP combined with some static mesh details, and you wouldn't even know the difference. And many vanilla maps use that approach. But I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. I'm in geometry mode. I've got my red builder brush selected, and I just want to make this bigger. So I'm going to click this face here, and I'm going to drag it out. Whoops. I'm going to drag it out, and I'm going to click this face and drag it out over here. And you can see it's everything I do is mimicked in the top view, and I can do it in either view. So there, I'm going to off click it now, and then I'm going to re-click it so I select the whole brush, and I just kind of want my objective marker in the middle of the objective. And now what I'm going to do, this is just a brush, remember, it doesn't represent anything other than the shape. Now I want to make this an RO placeable volume. So we will scroll down here, and there it is, RO placeable volume. I click on it. Now I can move this thing out of the way, and this is what my objective is. So anyone that's inside this is going to be capping or defending the objective. But right now they're independent. I need to connect the two. So I'm going to go to the properties of the objective. And an easy way to do this, there's several ways as usual, but an easy way is you go to your scene, and you just select, I want to just see my RO placeable volumes. I only have one, so that's the only one that's going to show up. Now I can search in here for volume or RO placeable volume. Here it's called objective volume, and what I need to do is select this here and plug it in here. So the easiest way to do it is just hit the green arrow with it either selected here or in the level. So there it is, it's plugged in. Now the map or the game knows, and I'm going to save it again just in case. But now it knows that if I'm inside this volume, anywhere inside it, then I am going to be either attacking or defending in the cap zone for this objective here. And when the objective is no longer active or it's been captured and it's locked or whatnot, then it's not going to affect anything. So that covers the part on setting up your objective. The last thing we need to do is set it up in Kismet. So when I'm going to Kismet, the easiest thing, just like the spawns, I want to have the objective selected. And what I'm going to do here is throw down the variable new object using RO objective 0. And a lot of times, a good little habit to get into, I didn't do it with the spawns, I'll type something here. So I'll put objective A, and I can name it whatever I want, but I know that's A. So later on when I have 9 objectives and I'm trying to remember what goes where, I can remember, okay, that's objective A. Alright, so to set up the objective, a couple things. First, we need to go to New Action, Objective, and there's 2 things we need here. We need Enable Objective, and that's going to end up going down here in a minute, and we need Activate Objective, so that's in the same place. New Action, Objective, Activate Objective. This is the one that's actually going to turn on the objective or turn it off if we plug into the deactivate. So for this, when the map starts, we want to enable our spawns and of course enable our objective. But before you can activate any objective, it has to be enabled. So typically the typical practice is we just enable every objective at the beginning of the map and activate them as we need them. And enabling isn't going to turn them off, but enabling them, I guess, loads them up and gets them ready to be activated. But if you don't enable it, you just try to activate it, or if you activate it before you enable it, it causes problems. I still have a hard time remembering which one goes first because they sound so similar. So a lot of times I have to look at another map when I do this. But enable early on. You could enable and activate as you go, but it's easier. I just plug all my objectives in here at the beginning of the map, and then I activate and deactivate as we go. So we can test this real quick. This should be fine. I'm going to save it just to make sure this works, and we'll play in game and play from here. And if you remember, I set up the access spawn at the end of the last video. But I didn't set up any roles, so we're still going to be stuck using the Soviet team for now. And once the countdown finishes, we'll be able to run out there, and there it is. And you can see it's kind of floating up in the air a little bit, simply because we had raised it up because we blew up the scale of the icon a little bit, so that's not a big deal. We could always lower it back down, but it's working. It's telling us how far away the objective itself is, and as you can see, if it was a huge objective and the marker was at one far end of the objective, it might say we were 100 meters away and we could actually be inside of it. So the distance you see to the objective is always based on that objective we placed down, that big white disc. So we won the only objective, and the Kismet ends there, so it automatically, once you win all the objectives and there's nothing left to play for, the game takes that as it's over. So we capture the objective and we won, and it automatically is going to go into round 2. Alright, the next thing I want to touch on are a thing called cover links. Now, cover links are the things you use in the game when you want to deploy a machine gun, climb over something, climb over a wall, climb up maybe onto a ledge, things like that. They are also used quite a bit by the AI in the game, and by that you'll see without cover link set up, the bot paths don't work properly. You can't get your bots to attack things even if you tell them to. So they are used a lot, and we'll get into that in a moment here with pylons. But essentially the bots are just blindly running between cover links and setting up once they get there. You'll notice if you play with bots, sometimes they do some weird things when they're leaning them out from a wall for really no reason because they're kind of glued to that cover link. And that's just the way the AI is kind of set up. They try to find the best cover link, and a lot of times they'll stay there unless they need to move. So we'll go over real quick on just how to set these up. I'm going to use just to make things easy, I'm just going to use a default little sandbag wall, since we run into those quite a bit in this game, and setting up cover links on there. So I found a fairly wide sandbag wall here. I just typed in sand, and I'm still limited to static meshes in my filters. I'll press S and drop it down, and these are conveniently the perfect height. They were made that way. This one's already snapped to the terrain, so it's right where we want it to be. Now what I'm going to do to put down the cover link, we're going to just set some up. If you were to walk up to this in the game right now, you couldn't do anything. You just run into it. You couldn't climb it or anything. We are going to right click kind of where we want the cover link, add actor, add RO cover link. There it is. Now you can see this one is a little close. When we set them up here, we don't want them necessarily touching the cover, but we want them fairly close. This one's just a little bit low as well, I believe. So I'm going to show you how I typically set mine up. There are several ways to do this. Some of the stock maps do them a little different. You can get very, very detailed. There are a lot of options for these. They may or may not reflect in the gameplay of the map, but you can dive into them kind of as deep as you want. A lot of times it comes down to time. Setting these up can become very time consuming. It can honestly get a little boring too. So I'll share a couple shortcuts I do as well, but usually what I do, this is the I guess we'll call this the cover link, and we'll call this the node. So we have this set up here. If I click on it, it turns pink. If I off click, left click on it, it's pink. Left click anywhere else, then I've got the whole node. So we're going to confuse myself with the names here, but we'll call this the link, we'll call this the node. So the link is the entire thing, and the node is just the red box. Now we can have multiple nodes on one link, and I'll show you that in a minute. But usually what I'll do is once I get one down, I'm going to click on it, turns pink. I'm going to right click on it now. I get a bazillion options. First thing I usually do is click automatic. It's already selected, but for whatever reason I usually click it again, and I've got this set up right here. What I'm going to do now is click off of it, so I've got the node again. Probably switching the terms, but I usually raise it up a hair. That's the good symbol right there. That means it's in the right position. But I'll hit N just to snap it down to the grid. Okay, so I've got it set up now. Usually what I want to do, and like I said before, it defaults to automatic. I've clicked it. Mantle is the ability to climb over things. Now, in order for a mantle node to work, it has to have a mantle node directly across from it. So we'll get into that in a minute too once we do the other side, but I'm going to leave the rest of these settings alone for now. And what I'm going to do is get this selected. It's pink. Here is the overhead view. Now a quick shortcut, I can completely copy this link next to it by hitting the insert key. So I hit insert, insert, insert. Now I have 4. These are all identical links. If I click on one of them, everything's the same as the first one was here. Now what I can do here, since I'm on the left, if I want, I can enable the left lean, and you can see that pops up here in this view. This is a little preview. These little arrows, these curved arrows over the top, are telling me that the mantle is enabled. Now, in order to, I guess, make these work, we will have to build cover, which we'll do here shortly. If you build cover, and I don't have anything on the other side of this, then these arrows are going to go away because they're not going to work correctly. It needs to be on both sides. So I'm going to take this one, right click on it, and lean right. So I've got this one, all four are set to pop up, which means I can pop up, shoot, deploy machine guns, things like that, pop up. The two on the edges are set to lean left, lean right. So now a quick trick, I'm going to off click on everything. I've got this selected, so I've got the base node selected, so it's got everything selected. I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm just going to drag it. Now I've got the exact same thing over here, but I need to turn it around. So I'm going to hit spacebar to get my rotation widget. Try to get it lined up just about even with the other one, but it's going to be at the opposite end. Now as you can see, my lean left and lean right still work because I've completely rotated the node. So just to make sure it's in the right spot, I'm going to tap end. It didn't move, which is good. So now if I can click on both, if I hold down Control, and they're both pretty much identically lined up from each other. Okay, before we can actually test this, we need to do a couple things. We need to build Covernodes, which, since we only have 8 or 2, however you're looking at it, only takes a few seconds. Later on, when you get a lot, I think Omaha Beach had like 1,400 or something, and it took a little bit longer to build them. That takes a little bit longer. And then a lot of times as well, even though the cover's built, everything looks good in here. If you actually want to test it, even in Pi, if you want to play it in here, you have to at least build paths. Not quite sure why, because we really have no paths to build on this, but a lot of times it won't work, and I actually just tested it off camera and it did not work. So I'm trying it again here now that we've rebuilt cover, which is what you want to do first, and then rebuild paths. Later down the road, if we cover ladders, it's the exact same way, and it's kind of annoying, but that's the way it works. So we've rebuilt Covernodes, rebuilt paths, and now we're just going to test it in game real quick. I should have got a machine gun, I guess, but as you can see, we got the climb over icon. I've got my tip thing disabled, but mine's spacebar, the default, and that works to climb over. We can also hit Control, as you know, and we can blind fire. We can pop up, although it doesn't seem to be working for this height, and jump over. So that covers cover nodes and how to set them up. Some of the other options I'll go over real quick when you're dealing with these. You can set, so if we're spawning over here as allies, we want the allies to use this side of the wall rather than jump on the side that's taking fire and face the wrong direction. So you see that a lot in maps, that's why. And like I've said before, I'll be honest, I haven't gone through every node I've placed and changed all that because it really does take a lot of time, but you certainly could set this to be what you would do. There's 3 classes. You got the attackers, the defenders, and the support. So we could set, if this was the ally side, I want the allies, attackers. By default, everything's neutral. So that kind of gives everything an equal weight on where the likelihood of where the bots will go. This doesn't affect players at all, but this is just for the bots. So I could set this side to good. I could set this side to allies, attackers bad, and that would give them, make them much more likely to show up on this side. Support roles, machine guns, things like that. So that's something you can do. It's you'll notice a lot of even vanilla maps don't do it, probably because it just simply would take a long time, but it's certainly something you can do. But you got your other options. If you want something like, I want to climb up on a ledge, I'm not going to hop over it, I just want to climb up and it's too high for me to just walk up, then you would set up the climb up. and when you check climb up, it's going to disable mantle, and it's going to set climb up. And once you build cover and paths, if it worked, you'll get this like stair step looking arrow that's a little bit more jagged. The SWAT turn, things like that, I have no idea what they do. I've never seen them used in any of the maps. If you want to force someone to take cover while standing up or something, or getting low, you can do that. But typically I stick with automatic, and it almost 100% of the time works just fine. So sometimes you'll get into an issue. The bunkers on the beach of Omaha were causing a problem where machine guns couldn't be deployed. The cover nodes weren't building right. So I ended up using this force can pop-up, and what that's going to do is force the node to work, even maybe in a situation where there's not quite enough room, and you'll get this circle with a dot, which means that the pop-up node worked correctly, which is going to let you deploy a machine gun on that ledge. And that's what the force option does. If it's not building right, you just can't get it to work. Very few cases I would think would need that, but that kind of covers cover nodes and setting up things like that. Next we'll cover pylons. Okay, this will be very brief, but pylons are what build the paths and kind of let the bots know where they can go. Without a path for a bot to run on, they simply won't go that way. If you've ever played maybe a custom map that didn't have pylons, you tried to play with bots and the bots just stood there and kind of maybe took a step or two in one direction but never really went anywhere, even if they were told to. That map didn't have its pylon set up correctly. So this is kind of easy to do. And another shortcut for this, I guess you could do, we're also going to go over navigation point pylons. A lot of times you can copy these from another map. So you go to a stock map that's maybe about the same size as yours. You can select all its pylons, copy them, and bring them into your map and paste them, and then build paths. So there's several ways to do this. As usual, I'm just going to select the pylon and then right click on the terrain, add the pylon here. Now you can see I got the bad symbol, error, what is it called, bad size. I'm just going to raise it up a hair, and I'm going to hit end, and it's got this like pylon. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. I guess it's a path marker or something. But if I click, you can't see anything if other than the icon. If I click on it, you'll see it's this square. Now if I build paths, it won't take but a second. When you get a bigger map with a couple hundred of these maybe, or 40, it's going to take a lot longer. So the paths have been built. Now what I can do is tap the P key, P as in Paul, and that's showing me now I have paths built. And this, if I were to play with bots, I don't have my bots turned on right now for Pi, but if I were to play with bots, they could go, and they would go, anywhere in this green area. And if I added, what I'd want to do, I'm going to turn that back off. You'll notice when your paths are on, it really kind of bogs down the SDK. I can copy these, and you want them to slightly overlap. So this is about perfect, really. You want them to slightly overlap. I forget the exact number. I don't know, 500 UUs or something like that. I can't remember. On the wiki, there's a recommendation. Usually, if you build paths and they connect, then you're fine. So what we'll do is we'll build paths again. And then once this is done, you'll see now I can run between these two pylons because the paths built together. They slightly overlap. So now if we were to play this in game, the bots from over here could easily come and attack the objective, as do the allied bots over here. So like I said, this takes a second, especially when you start to get a lot more. But once it's done, I can tap P. Now I'll get this little green wall here, which just means it's the border of two pylons, but it means they built correctly. It's all green, it's all good. And pylons are what kind of gives your bots the paths that they can run on. And then they're usually going to run towards the objectives one way or another. So you can get a string of these, you can copy, keep pasting them, and you can kind of build your map like that. That covers pylons. They're pretty simple. And one last thing to note with pylons, there is a checkbox in the properties for the pylons, and it's called Use Recast Simplification. You want this checked on all the pylons, and what this does is it speeds up the rate at which the paths are built or rebuilt, and it has a special setting in it that's, I guess, unique to this game to make things run a little bit more efficiently. So you want to make sure it's checked for all the pylons on your map. Okay, and to avoid this tutorial getting too long, I'm going to stop it here, and then we'll pick up on the next one. Hopefully in a couple of days. We'll touch on spawning fixed machine guns and a little bit about adding destructible meshes to your map. Okay, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.